Dead Rock Chapter 10 is probably one of the best chapters of this series by far, and something happened in this chapter that I legitimately did not expect to happen in this series for a little while longer, or just something that MASHIMA would write in general. It has ripple effects for the rest of the story and how potentially things could play out in the future, and I'm very happy with this decision, as it showcases that he's going a different direction with this story and could potentially give us something completely out of nowhere as things progress. And I can't wait to jump into this chapter with all of you guys, but first, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really helps and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows who want to see more. Dead Rock has been really fun to cover on this channel, and I cannot wait to do more with this series as things seem to be actually heating up with this chapter, so I'm excited to see what happens next. Now with that out of the way, let's jump right into things. Chapter 10 of Dead Rock, titled Slaughter. And this chapter and title is very accurate for what's going to happen later in this chapter, but for now, enjoy a color page of Frey to basically lull you into a false sense of security, I guess. The character profile this time is Hine, which interesting and very appropriate for the context of this little mini arc and the chapter that we've had so far. So continue from where last month left off, where Yakuto punched Cougar right into the books, but he ends up laughing as he gets up from the book pile as Yakuto reveals that Cougar just let him hit him. So Yakuto didn't really fully overpower the guy, and he gets up like it's no big deal. So Yakuto did not fully overpower the guy, he just let the man hit him. So that's interesting. So it kind of shows that his words resonated with him in the last chapter, and he just felt like letting him hit him. But Cougar tries to play it off as if it's not because Yakuto's kind of a friend of Hine, or because the words resonated with him, and he just plays things off and just acts his usual self. And I am Zelecia in this section, as I have no idea what he's saying half the time. Hine goes up to Cougar and says that he's idolized his strength, and if he hurt him in any way, he wanted to apologize. But Cougar just says, hey, don't worry about it ain't your fault. It's my fault for getting jealous. As remember, last chapter, it was revealed that he literally got jealous of Hine because all the women liked them. Some of them need to be locked up for obvious reasons, and I'm killing myself that I did not make that joke last chapter. But moving on, Cougar just says, seeing you after all these years, it's got me feeling nostalgic. Hine actually manages to smile, which shocks Zelecia. So yeah, the guy is frowning at basically every single instance of this series, so it makes sense that seeing the guy smile would honestly shock anybody. But Cougar pulls out his hand to shake Hine's hand, saying, would you be my friend again? When Hine agrees, as with the next page, a giant fist shows up and punches Cougar straight into the ground, crushing him into a bloody puddle, with the blood even spraying all over Hine's face, shocking everyone in presence, as this is the vice principal of Dead Rock, Bren, and one of the 4 demon teachers. As Hine is obviously shocked to see that basically his best friend at this point was just killed in front of him, the vice principal nonchalantly with a blank expression says, silence is required in the library. Yakuto is shocked that he's here, and he comes to the conclusion that he's in charge of the library. Hine charges at Bren with an ice slash, but it seemingly does nothing. It freezes up his arm, but he doesn't seem too concerned about it. Zelecia obviously comes to the conclusion that they are not ready to fight him just yet. They're not strong enough. She calls for Yakuto and Hine to run away as they can't win. Yakuto asks about the book, but Zelecia says that we can get it at any time since the library showcases you whatever you're thinking of right in this moment. So Yakuto thinks the book that tells God's weakness. And then a book flies out of the bookshelf as it appears right in front of him. And this confirms Bren's suspicions, as this is what they were after. He then stretches and contorts his face and neck, as in the next page, we see his head is freaking giant and blocks their path. And yeah, this is straight up nightmare fuel for anybody. So, good showcasing of a 2-page spread for this. So this will freak out anybody. As this freaks out Zelecia and Yakuto, Bren just blows Zelecia away with his breath, as she ends up hitting the wall, she turns back into her bird form, turning back into Chaco. So potentially she just ran out of power and she just sealed herself back up, or she got knocked out and she turned into a bird again. Hine readies himself and begins to slash at Bren's face like he did previously, but as Yakuto's trying to tell him to run away, Hine in anger says, how could you? He was my one friend in the world, and you, as he then hits him with an ice blade snow moon flower strike once more against his face with a large ice slash gouging his face. But that doesn't really seem to do anything. When Hine says for it to shatter to bits, we see that potentially there was an injury, and he did manage to draw blood this time. However, Bren's like, oh, that does hurt a little bit. But he's not so concerned over this. This shocks Hine as he's towering over him. He goes on to say that this year's batch of first years are full of pep, as he then gets his hand over Hine and says, "But that's enough now. I won't let you go any further. Now it's time for punishment," as in the next 2-page spread is Bren's giant hand squashing Hine like a bug, splattering him and crushing him into a bloody puddle, leaving nothing remaining. As Yakuto and Chako are legitimately terrified of what they just witnessed, Hine is dead. And we even see the bloody mess that's coming up, as all that remains of Hine is just his sword as blood drips from Bren's hand. Yakuto is shaking in fear while holding the book. Bren then says, "Now be a good boy and give me that book." Yakuto is stunned in fear. Bren smiles creepily and then just exclaims in anger, "Hand it over. You want me to squish you all like ants?" Which again, the way he's contorting his face is pretty plain face, is outwardly nightmare fuel depending how you draw it. And I think Mashima did a really good job at presenting just how terrifying this guy can be, and he's also like the second strongest person at Dead Rock. Yakuto drops the book, and Bren says, "Pick it up and bring it to me," as Yakuto can only say, "Yes, sir." Now this is good. This is our first real instance showcasing Yakuto in a sense of powerlessness. We did see him get taken out when he was on a rampage in his dragon form by God, but that was the main antagonist of the series. Of course, he's not going to win and get one shot by this guy, and his powers were sealed. Now he's facing off one of the 4 demon teachers, and now he truly sees just how powerless in this moment he is. He was terrified and Hine was killed. And this is just something I gotta commend Mashima on the balls to do, to kill off one of the main cast members of your series. He was on the color page on the initial release of this series. We were getting insight into his backstory in the last chapters. And now, all of a sudden, as things seem to be going his way, where everyone's probably going to join Yakuto in his quest, boom, he's dead. Like a bloody puddle in the ground. I did not expect this. I knew the potential for characters to die was a thing. I mean, randos get killed in every chapter, and one of the rules is allow students to kill anybody that they don't deem to like, even the teachers. So, this is something that was completely unexpected. But moving on with the chapter, we go back to the Dead Rock dorm room bone rampage as we meet Makoto and Ryzen, as Makoto just says, "I'm impressed you made it out alive." And Ryzen is just like, "Geez, you got the luck of the devil on you." Yakuto goes on to said, "Could you bring Hine back to life?" But Makoto says no. Not if there's no body. 100% confirming in this section, unless we get some sort of time travel shenanigans or some magic that can revive the dead that isn't necromancy, that Hine is gone for good. There is no body left for Makoto to reanimate into a zombie with her necromancy. So, he's gone for now. She can't turn him into a zombie and revive him like Ryzen did when it came to Chapter 2. So this confirms that the Dead Rock 7 is now back to the Dead Rock 6 at this point. So, Dead Rock 6 doesn't really have the same ring to it as Dead Rock 7, but we'll work on it. Freya's trying to come to terms with the fact that Hine and Cougar are dead, and Hani's like, "We barely even gotten to know the guy," as he's concerned that, "Why are you so upset? We barely even knew the guy." Yakuto pauses for a second and thinks about what Hine said as his last words about Cougar being his only friend in the world. Yakuto says, "Maybe I could have been his friend too." Obviously, a theme with Mashima's different series is friendship and found family. So obviously, the idea that one of his main characters ends up losing somebody before he could gain an actual connection to them is a big deal, and it's nice that it's being addressed here. As Yakuto then begins to break down in tears, saying he came to rescue me. As, he's feeling guilty because Hine wouldn't have been dead if he didn't come to help him, which is honestly kind of true. Ryzen obviously tries to break the tension by saying, "Oh, so you can cry for people then?" I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. While we all know Yakuto's kind of had it rough, we do know that he's kind of, a psychopath. I mean, just think about the last couple of chapters, he was getting raged up and excited over killing people. So obviously, Ryzen questioning the fact that he can actually cry for others, it's a reasonable thing to say in this instance, even though it's kind of dark. I like how Makoto was just like, "What do you think he is, man?" I like how she just came to his defense in that instance, being like, Ryzen might have gone a bit too far with that comment. But Zelecia, I'm going back and forth between Chako and Zelecia. I think it depends on the form she takes, so I'm probably going to flip-flop depending on how she is, but Zelecia goes on to ask Yakuto if he's lost his will to fight. But then Yakuto in anger just says, "No, I'm ready to go to war. For my family, for my village, and for Hine and Cougar. I'm going to kill God if it's the last thing I do." As obviously, this gets everyone's attention, and Zelecia says, "Okay, that's a relief to hear. We both got scared back there, but I did my job," as she uses her magic to conjure something out. As she reveals the book with God's weakness, God's root. And this shocks Yakuto, as she managed to swipe the book from the library without anybody noticing. And in the next page, we literally see that Bren is back in his room, as the book he took from them was actually swapped out. So can you go to the bathroom on your own? A kiddie book, as the chapter ends with him being enraged that they somehow managed to swap the books without him realizing it. Ending the chapter with him being completely infuriated. Now this chapter was absolutely unexpected in how things played out. I thought, okay, there was going to be something in this whole chapter where they're not going to get what they want and face some sort of obstacle in the way, because otherwise the story would go on too quickly. But no, while they did essentially get what they were looking for, I don't think it's going to be too easy for them to go through that book to find the weakness of the main antagonist of the series. Not to mention we still have the top 4 enemies that they have to face before taking him down, but we also lost one of the main cast members. We are a man down, which is something that I did not expect. And not only that, in usual MASHIMA fashion, Cougar probably would have joined them as some sort of support in the future due to circumstances in how a series tend to be written. But no, this time he decided, okay, let's kill off one of the main cast members and also someone who was probably going to be a potential ally. And it makes sense for the story that he's running right here, because in this setting, anybody can die at any random moment. Heck, Ryzen was killed in Chapter 2, but the only reason he's still alive is because there were still parts of his body around for Makoto to revive him with her necromancy as a zombie. But with Hine and Cougar, nothing is left. Just a bloody puddle and his sword. Now, maybe if we find somebody that could use ghosts, maybe we'll find his spirit or whatever and bring him back that way. But as of right now, he is dead. 100% confirmed, cannot be revived by Makoto or anybody else right now. Now, one thing I'm curious about is if the other student that just disappeared during the entrance exam, Bebel, actually might show up in the series again. Maybe he'll be the next main cast member. Because we still have no real clue how he is going to end up being brought into the story, in what manner it'll end up progressing things, or why he just chose to remain in the test area underground for so long and not just enter Deadrock. What their main goal will end up being is completely unknown. But as of right now, the main cast's not ready. They were scared shitless, and they were too weak to even do anything against one of the top 4 in that school, not to mention the literal principal and literal god. So they're probably going to need to do some sort of training, and having the book that will detail God's weakness and God's roots, things will progress for the main cast in some manner or form. But that doesn't mean if they know more about this guy, that they'll be able to beat him, because as of right now, Yakuto still only has power in his right arm. The majority of his strength is gone. So at the bare minimum, they have to take out Lilith so he can gain all his powers back, most likely, and then take out the rest of the top 4 until they take on God. But that's really all I gotta say for this chapter. Things went in a completely different direction than what I was expecting, and for MASHIMA at all to end up creating for a series that, based on how he usually writes things. So this was a nice change of pace and direction for what he normally creates, and this keeps me guessing, as anybody can be on the chopping block next, anybody can die now, and that does raise the stakes for this story. But what do you guys think? How do you feel about this latest development in Deadrock? Do you think people will come back? Do you think people will still be dying in future chapters and arcs? And how do you think the story will progress, and what the book will end up revealing to us with God's roots and potentially his weaknesses? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.